The Complete Works of William Shakespeare by William Shakespeare. Act I. Scene I. London. An antechamber in the King's Palace. Enter the Archbishop of Canterbury and the Bishop of Ely. Canterbury. My lord, I'll tell you, that self-bill is urged which in the 11th year of the last King's reign was like, and had indeed against us passed, but that the scambling and unquiet time did push it out a farther question. Ely. But how, my lord, shall we resist it now? Canterbury. It must be thought on. If it pass against us, we lose the better half of our possession, for all the temporal lands, which men devout by testament have given to the Church, would they strip from us, being valued thus, as much as would maintain, to the King's honour, full 15 earls and 1,500 knights, 6,200 good esquires, and to relief of lazars and weak age, of indigent faint souls past corporal toil, 100 almshouses right well supplied, and to the coffers of the King beside, £1,000 by year. Thus runs the bill. Ely. This would drink deep. Canterbury. 'Twould drink the cup and all. Ely. But what prevention? Canterbury. The King is full of grace and fair regard. Ely. And a true lover of the Holy Church. Canterbury. The courses of his youth promised it not. The breath no sooner left his father's body but that his wildness, mortified in him, seemed to die too, yea, at that very moment consideration like an angel came and whipped offending Adam out of him, leaving his body as a paradise envelope and contained celestial spirits. Never was such a sudden scholar made, never came reformation in a flood with such a heady current scouring faults, nor never hydra-headed wilfulness so soon did lose his seat, and all at once, as in this King. Ely. We are blessed in the change. Canterbury. Hear him but reason in divinity and, all admiring, with an inward wish you would desire the King were made a prelate, hear him debate of Commonwealth affairs, you would say it hath been all in all his study, list his discourse of war, and you shall hear a fearful battle rendered you in music, turn him to any cause of policy, the Gordian knot of it he will unloose, familiar as his garter, that, when he speaks, the air, a chartered libertine, is still, and the mute wonder lurketh in men's ears to steal his sweet and honeyed sentences, so that the art and practic part of life must be the mistress to this theoric, which is a wonder how his grace should glean it, since his addiction was to courses vain, his companies unlettered, rude, and shallow, his hours filled up with riots, banquets, sports, and never noted in him any study, any retirement, any sequestration from open haunts and popularity. Ely. The strawberry grows underneath the nettle, and wholesome berries thrive and ripen best neighbored by fruit of baser quality, and so the prince obscured his contemplation under the veil of wildness, which, no doubt, grew like the summer grass, fastest by night, unseen, yet crescive in his faculty. Canterbury. It must be so, for miracles are ceased, and therefore we must needs admit the means how things are perfected. Ely. But, my good lord, how now for mitigation of this bill urged by the Commons? Doth his Majesty incline to it, or no? Canterbury. He seems indifferent, or rather swaying more upon our part than cherishing exhibitors against us, for I have made an offer to his Majesty, upon our spiritual convocation and in regard of causes now in hand, which I have opened to his Grace at large, as touching France, to give a greater sum than ever at one time the clergy yet did to his predecessor's part withal. Ely. How did this offer seem received, my lord? Canterbury. With good acceptance of his Majesty, save that there was not time enough to hear, as I perceived his Grace would fain have done, the several and unhidden passages of his true titles to some certain dukedoms, and generally to the crown and seat of France, derived from Edward, his great-grandfather. Ely. What was impediment that broke this off? Canterbury. The French ambassador upon that instant craved audience, and the hour, I think, is come to give him hearing. Is it 4 o'clock? Ely. It is Canterbury. Then go we in, to know his embassy, which I could with a ready guess declare before the Frenchmen speak a word of it. Ely. I'll wait upon you, and I long to hear it. Exeunt. Scene 2. The same. The presence chamber. Enter King Henry, Gloucester, Bedford, Clarence, Warwick, Westmoreland, Exeter, and attendants. King Henry. Where is my gracious Lord of Canterbury? Exeter. Not here in presence. King Henry. Send for him, good uncle. Westmoreland. Shall we call in th ambassador, my liege? King Henry. Not yet, my cousin. We would be resolved, before we hear him, of some things of weight that task our thoughts concerning us and France. Enter the Archbishop of Canterbury and the Bishop of Ely. Canterbury. God and his angels guard your sacred throne and make you long become it. King Henry. Sure, we thank you, my learned lord. We pray you to proceed and justly and religiously unfold why the law Salic that they have in France or should not bar us in our claim. And God forbid, my dear and faithful lord, that you should fashion, rest, or bow your reading, or nicely charge your understanding soul with opening titles miscreate, whose right suits not in native colours with the truth. For God doth know how many now in health shall drop their blood in approbation of what your reverence shall incite us to. Therefore take heed how you impugn our person, how you awake our sleeping sword of war. We charge you in the name of God, take heed, for never two such kingdoms did contend without much fall of blood, whose guiltless drops are every one a woe, a sore complaint gainst him whose wrongs gives edge unto the swords that makes such waste and brief mortality. Under this conjuration speak, my lord, for we will hear, note, and believe in heart that what you speak is in your conscience washed as pure as sin with baptism. Canterbury. Then hear me, gracious sovereign, and you peers, that owe yourselves, your lives, and services to this imperial throne. There is no bar to make against your highness claim to France but this, which they produce from Pharamond, in term Salicum muliers any succeedent. No woman shall succeed in Salic land, which Salic land the French unjustly gloze to be the realm of France, and Pharamond the founder of this law and female bar. Yet their own authors faithfully affirm that the land Salic is in Germany, between the floods of Sala and of Elbe, where Charles the Great, having subdued the Saxons, there left behind and settled certain French, who, holding in disdain the German women for some dishonest manners of their life, established then this law, to wit, no female should be inheritrix in Salic land, which Salic, as I said, twixt Elbe and Sala, is at this day in Germany called Meissen. Then doth it well appear the Salic law was not devised for the realm of France, nor did the French possess the Salic land until 421 years after defunct Tyon of King Pharamond, idly suppository the founder of this law, who died within the year of our redemption 426, and Charles the Great subdued the Saxons, and did seat the French beyond the river Sala, in the year 805. Besides, their writers say, King Pepin, which deposed Childeric, did, as their general, being descended of Blithold, which was daughter to King Clothaire, make claim and title to the crown of France. Hugh Capet also, who usurped the crown of Charles the Duke of Lorraine, sole heir male of the true line and stock of Charles the Great, to find his title with some shows of truth, though, in pure truth, it was corrupt and naught, conveyed himself as the heir to the Lady Lingar, daughter to Charlemagne, who was the son to Louis the Emperor, and Louis the son of Charles the Great. Also, King Louis X, who was sole heir to the usurper Capet, could not keep quiet in his conscience, wearing the crown of France, till satisfied that fair Queen Isabel, his grandmother, was lineal of the Lady Ermengarde, daughter to Charles, the foresaid Duke of Lorraine, by the which marriage the line of Charles the Great was reunited to the crown of France. So that, as clear as is the summer's sun, King Pepin's title and Hugh Capet's claim, King Louis his satisfaction, all appear to hold in right and title of the female. So do the kings of France unto this day, Howbeit they would hold up this Salic law to bar your highness claiming from the female, and rather choose to hide them in a net than amply to embar their crooked titles usurped from you and your progenitors. King Henry. May I with right and conscience make this claim? Canterbury. The sin upon my head, dread sovereign! For in the book of Numbers is it writ, when the man dies, let the inheritance descend unto the daughter. Gracious Lord, stand for your own. Unwind your bloody flag. Look back into your mighty ancestors. Go, my dread lord, to your great-grandsire's tomb, from whom you claim. Invoke his warlike spirit, and your great-uncle's, Edward the Black Prince, who on the French ground played a tragedy, making defeat on the full power of France, whilst his most mighty father on a hill stood smiling to behold his lion's whelp forage in blood of French nobility. O noble English, that could entertain with half their forces the full pride of France, and let another half stand laughing by, all out of work and cold for action. Ely. Awake remembrance of these valiant dead, and with your puissant arm renew their feats. You are their heir, you sit upon their throne, the blood and courage that renown them runs in your veins, and my thrice puissant liege is in the very May-morn of his youth, ripe for exploits and mighty enterprises. Exeter. Your brother kings and monarchs of the earth do all expect that you should rouse yourself, as did the former lions of your blood. Westmoreland. They know your grace hath cause and means and might, so hath your highness. Never king of England had nobles richer, and more loyal subjects, whose hearts have left their bodies here in England and lie pavilioned in the fields of France. Canterbury. Oh, let their bodies follow, my dear liege, with blood and sword and fire to win your right, in aid whereof we of the spirituality will raise your highness such a mighty sum as never did the clergy at one time bring into any of your ancestors. King Henry. We must not only arm to invade the French, but lay down our proportions to defend against the Scot, who will make road upon us with all advantages. Canterbury. They of those marches, gracious sovereign, shall be a wall sufficient to defend our inland from the pilfering borderers. King Henry. We do not mean the coursing snatchers only, but fear the main intendment of the Scot, who hath been still a giddy neighbour to us. For you shall read that my great-grandfather never went with his forces into France, but that the Scot on his unfurnished kingdom came pouring, like the tide into a breach, with ample and brim fullness of his force, galling the gleaned land with hot assays, girdling with grievous siege castles and towns, that England, being empty of defence, hath shook and trembled at the ill neighbourhood. Canterbury. She hath been then more feared than harmed, my liege. For hear her but exampled by herself, when all her chivalry hath been in France, and she a mourning widow of her nobles, she hath herself not only well defended but taken and impounded as a stray the King of Scots, whom she did send to France to fill King Edward's fane with prisoner kings, and make her chronicle as rich with praise as is the ooze and bottom of the sea with sunken wreck and sumless treasuries. Westmoreland. But there's a saying very old and true. If that you will France win, then with Scotland first begin. For once the eagle England being in prey, to her unguarded nest the weasel Scot comes sneaking and so sucks her princely eggs, playing the mouse in absence of the cat, to tear and havoc more than she can eat. Exeter. It follows then the cat must stay at home, yet that is but a crushed necessity, since we have locks to safeguard necessaries, and pretty traps to catch the petty thieves. While that the armed hand doth fight abroad, the advised head defends itself at home. For government, though high and low and lower, put into parts, doth keep in one consent, congregating in a full and natural close, like music. Canterbury. Therefore doth heaven divide the state of man in divers functions, setting endeavour in continual motion, to which is fixed, as an aim or but obedience. For so work the honey-bees, creatures that by a rule in nature teach the act of order to a peopled kingdom. They have a king and officers of sorts, where some, like magistrates, correct at home, others like merchants, venture trade abroad, others, like soldiers, armed in their stings, make boot upon the summer's velvet buds, which pillage they with merry march bring home to the tent royal of their emperor, who, busied in his majesty, surveys the singing masons building roofs of gold, the civil citizens kneading up the honey, the poor mechanic porters crowding in their heavy burdens at his narrow gate, the sad-eyed justice, with his surly hum, delivering o'er to executors pale the lazy yawning drone. I this infer that many things, having full reference to one consent, may work contrariously. As many arrows, loose several ways, come to one mark, as many ways meet in one town, as many fresh streams meet in one salt sea, as many lines close in the dial's center, so many 1,000 actions, once afoot, end in one purpose, and be all well borne without defeat. Therefore to France, my liege, divide your happy England into 4, whereof take you 1/4 into France, and you withal shall make all Gallia shake. If we, with thrice such powers left at home, cannot defend our own doors from the dog, let us be worried and our nation lose the name of hardiness and policy. King Henry. Call in the messengers sent from the Dauphin. Exeunt some attendants. Now are we well resolved, and by God's help, and yours, the noble sinews of our power, France being ours, we'll bend it to our all, or break it all to pieces. Or there we'll sit, ruling in large and ample empery o'er France and all her almost kingly dukedoms, or lay these bones in an unworthy urn, tombless, with no remembrance over them. Either our history shall with full mouth speak freely of our acts, or else our grave, like Turkish mute, shall have a tongueless mouth, not worshipped with a waxen epitaph. Enter ambassadors of France. Now are we well prepared to know the pleasure of our fair cousin Dauphin, for we hear your greeting is from him, not from the king. First Ambassador. Make please your majesty to give us leave freely to render what we have in charge, or shall we sparingly show you far off the Dauphin's meaning and our embassy? King Henry. We are no tyrant, but a Christian king, unto whose grace our passion is as subject as is our wretches fettered in our prisons. Therefore with frank and with uncurbed plainness tell us the Dauphin's mind. Ambassador. Thus then in few. Your Highness, lately sending into France, did claim some certain dukedoms, in the right of your great predecessor, King Edward III. In answer of which claim, the prince our master says that you savour too much of your youth, and bids you be advis there's not in France that can be with a nimble galliard one. You cannot revel into dukedoms there. He therefore sends you, meeter for your spirit, this ton of treasure, and in lieu of this, desires you let the dukedoms that you claim hear no more of you. This the Dauphin speaks. King Henry. What treasure, uncle? Exeter. Tennis balls, my liege. King Henry. We are glad the Dauphin is so pleasant with us. His present and your pains we thank you for. When we have matched our rackets to these balls, we will, in France, by God's grace, play a set shall strike his father's crown into the hazard. Tell him he hath made a match with such a wrangler that all the courts of France will be disturbed with chases. And we understand him well, how he comes o'er us with our wilder days, not measuring what use we made of them. We never valued this purse seed of England, and therefore, living hence, did give ourselves to barbarous license, as 'tis ever common that men are merriest when they are from home. But tell the Dauphin I will keep my state, be like a king, and show my sail of greatness when I do rouse me in my throne of France. For that I have laid by my majesty and plotted like a man for working days, but I will rise there with so full a glory that I will dazzle all the eyes of France, yea, strike the Dauphin blind to look on us. And tell the pleasant prince this mock of his hath turned his balls to gunstones, and his soul shall stand sore charged for the wasteful vengeance that shall fly with them. For many 1,000 widows shall this his mock out of their dear husbands, mock mothers from their sons, mock castles down, and some are yet ungotten and unborn that shall have cause to curse the Dauphin's scorn. But this lies all within the will of God, to whom I do appeal, and in whose name tell you the Dauphin I am coming on to venge me as I may, and to put forth my rightful hand in a well-hallowed cause. So get you hence in peace, and tell the Dauphin his jest will savour but of shallow wit, when thousands weep more than did laugh at it. Convey them with safe conduct. Fare you well. Exon ambassadors. Exeter. This was a merry message. King Henry. We hope to make the sender blush at it. Therefore, my lords, omit no happy hour that may give furtherance to our expedition, for we have now no thought in us but France, save those to God, that run before our business. Therefore, let our proportions for these wars be soon collected, and all things thought upon that may with reasonable swiftness add more feathers to our wings, for, God before, will chide this Dauphin at his father's door. Therefore let every man now task his thought, that this fair action may on foot be brought. Exeunt.